Is it just me, or does everybody on the internet make six figures? You cannot scroll down a comment section talking about finances without somebody telling you about how $100,000 is not enough for one person to live on anywhere in the United States, and that you would need $250,000 not to live paycheck to paycheck, and the family needs $500,000. But when we dig deeper, only 18% of US adults make six figures. Beyond that, it's an age distribution. Most of those people are in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s, because it takes a long career to build up to such a salary. Beyond that, the median individual income is about $48,000 for somebody working full-time, and man is about $60,000. For women, it's about $51,000. So why does this feel like everybody on the internet is making six figures? Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time here, hello, welcome. This is Essential Patience, and I am Patience. And on this channel, we have conversations about society's impact on our lives and our finances, and how we can take back that power and make more intentional decisions for our lives and our finances. And if that sounds good to you, hit the subscribe button. Also ring the notification bell so you do not miss out on any of my future videos. Let's get straight into these videos where real people will be telling you how much they're making. Now, we do have to use a little bit of nuance that maybe some people will like here and there, but I find these videos to be quite extremely transparent, and I think it also gives us a good idea. If I find anything I don't think is true, I'll point it out. But it is important to evaluate these so that we can have a perspective of what people are actually living on, because everybody is just not making six figures. Only 35% of households actually make $100,000 or more, and even for the individuals, the 18% of individuals who do make $100,000 or more, it breaks down to 25% of men making $100,000 or more and 12% for women in the United States. So let's watch this, learn, enjoy, and just have a good conversation. Let's start with our first video.
Family of four living off of one full-time income of $60,000 a year. Here's what we don't buy to still live well. 1, no cable TV. We stream with 1 or 2 subscriptions. No daily takeout. We meal plan and do fake away nights. No new clothes every season. We buy quality basics and thrift trends. Limit impulse shopping, and no big toy hauls. Most of our toys are either thrifted or gifted. These are all life habits we had even before I lost my job. Yes, we're sacrificing some things, but it's mostly about choosing what matters most and ditching the rest.
So good to know. Unfortunately, today, a lot of households do require 2 incomes, but living on 1 income, our husband makes $60,000. Remember what I said, that the median individual income for a man working full-time is $60,000. Her husband is literally that median man. And that is very realistic for a lot of families. Her losing her job and them still able to survive on 1 income, I mean, depending on what childcare costs, it might be worth it to stay at 1 income. They're still able to make it. You don't need to be making $500,000 for family to live a good life. It's about prioritizing it. And when we always compare ourselves to the 50s and 60s and 70s, we have to realize that a lot of those families were 1-car families. They had 1 television in the entire house. They streamed very little stuff. A lot of them had 1 computer when computers became available, 1 telephone when telephones became available. So this over consumerism lifestyle that a lot of us live today was not the norm, when some families even had the opportunity to live on 1 income in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Let's look at the comments. Which city do you live in? Curious the cost of living where you are. And she responded near Hamilton. This is the thing that a lot of people would like to ask. Be like, well, where I live is so expensive. Well, where you live is where you chose to live. Some people make the decision to relocate so they can live on 1 income so that the wife can stay home, or husband can stay home. I mean, we're in the 21st century, and make that decision. So for a lot of people, as hard as it is, most of us don't have to stay where we are. We choose to move to it, and then we act like we can't leave. There is nowhere else. This huge country that we will live. I used to live in the DMV, and I couldn't imagine myself living anywhere else because it was one of my favorite places. And I moved to Texas, which is more affordable. I enjoy it very much, and it made me more open to other places. I was able to find a community. It's a great place to live. Don't judge places before you move there. You will be surprised. What I used to say about Texas is not true. I enjoy living here very much. Another comment says, Hikes Walks is free, and so is public library. Libraries are amazing. Yes, they are. Another person asking, where do you live? I want to move there because New Jersey is almost impossible. So it turns out they are in Canada, which I know Canada is very expensive. A lot of people a complaint about the cost of living in Canada. Another person said limiting takeouts is huge. So true. You know how I feel about eating out. A lot of people, too many people are eating out, acting like it is a necessity and that groceries are too expensive. Yes, spending $50 to order food for one meal. Let's move on to the next video.
Most Americans think they're middle class, but are they really? Let's see what the actual data has to say. This household income data was collected by the U.S. Census Bureau in 2022. To note, to determine income class, you can either look at household income or overall net worth. In this case, I opted to use household income, and I've also tied in data to help you understand what percentage of Americans actually fall into each of these income classes. To begin, for lower class, you are making less than $30,000 a year as a household, and that makes up 19.4% of the population. To be lower middle class, you're making between $30,001 to $58,200, and that makes up 21.5% of the population. To be middle class, you're making between $58,021 to $94,000, which makes up 20.2% of the population. For upper middle class, you're making between $94,001 to $153,000, and that makes up 18.6% of the population. Finally, to be considered upper class based on annual household income, you're making over $153,000 a year, which makes up 20.3% of
Most Americans do think they're middle class. It's very popular belief, but most aren't. So you fall either in upper class or lower class. And I see a lot of upper class people who are like, we were just middle class folks. We're making $200,000. Like, yeah, that was in 1980s. That was very much upper class. And that's what makes me wonder where this data comes from. Because even though the percentages are right, I do wonder if we will consider $150,000 upper class today. I don't think so. I don't think $150,000 is upper class and should be in the same group as somebody who's making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, $10-20 million a year. I don't think so. I think the first one is right. I think middle to low to middle should be anywhere from $30,000 to maybe about $65,000. I think middle should be about $65,000 to $100,000. Upper middle is $100,000 to $250,000, and then I'll do like maybe an upper low to be $250,000 to $500,000, and an upper class should be $500,000 plus. But that's my opinion. I know they use this, but personally, I think this is outdated. Let's look at the comments. I'm sure a lot of people point that out. Someone said, I'm upper class, but I can't afford my first home at 43, and my bank account is overdrafted 2 weeks. Well, sir, that is bad financial decisions. I'm sorry, because at 43 years old, making over $150,000, you're telling me that you can't afford your first home, unless you've not been making that income for a while and it's new. I don't see why you couldn't purchase a house like 10, 20 years ago when interest rates were at an all-time low. I couldn't see how you couldn't have even purchased a house during the pandemic when interest rates were at an all-time low, or during 2015 when things were very affordable. 10, 20 years ago, even during the recession, houses were selling for pennies on the dollar. I think that's your problem. And somebody did respond, you're overdrafting, making $150,000 plus. You need financial counseling. Sounds like you have an expensive taste, and a lot of people are saying that you're bad with money. I'm sorry, like you can't just be out here saying it's the economy when you're making over $150,000. Is the economy? Only 20% of people make that and more in the entire country. Another comment reads, no way upper class is over $150,000. I still feel like I'm just getting by. I agree with the first part, but I don't agree with the second part. You're not just getting by unless you're just trying to flex on the internet. And that's what somebody responded. Bro, low-key trying to flex. Because you know, everybody on the internet makes 6 figures. Another person responded, no, really, I average 120 to 130 annually by myself, and it's definitely not much of a flex where I live. It is not great. It's just okay. Well, I don't know where you live. You can live in San Francisco, and I know that's a bit tough, but you're still one person. So I'm not saying that it's going to be the best income if you're living in the middle of Manhattan, or if you're living in Sacramento or like San Francisco or LA. I'm not saying it's going to be a ton of money, but you can't just be getting by because there are other people around you making way less. Now let's get to some real salaries here.
I'm a driver for UPS.
How much do you make?
About 50K.
What do you do?
A UPS driver.
How much do you make?
It's like 110.
How long have you been doing it?
8 years.
How's your work-life balance?
It's bad, but I work on between 55 hour a week.
I saw something on the news about UPS trucks being really hot. Is that a thing?
Yes. It's sometimes like 120 inside the box because there's no ventilation in the middle. Recently, I got the fan in my truck. I never had a fan.
Did you have to pay for it yourself, or they gave it?
Yeah, we are union. We are Teamster. Thank God for Teamster. They are the best. I love it. I'm outside, no boss, nothing. Just like we have like a system and we follow it, and that's it. And the union is great, so that's why we love it.
I deliver packages. I work for UPS.
UPS.
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, let's say 2 years.
2 years.
I'm lying.
How much do you make in your role
Oh. So far,
so far?
for this year,
Uh-huh.
you really want to know?
I do.
Like 120 maybe?
UPS drivers.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been on for 33 years.
33.
23.
And how much are y'all making in your roles?
It averages out between your hours, between base salary around 100, and with benefits and everything included, probably about 135. So,
And what about you?
I'm saying, yeah, once you hit a certain length of time, we all get paid the same, basically.
I wanted to bring this on because sometimes people think the only way to make six figures is to go to school, but no, there are other ways. And UPS drivers is one of the ways I have heard. I was shocked when I heard the salaries, but this means that even people who don't have degrees have a way of upward mobility. Now, they did talk about the work-life balance not being the best, but most of us don't have good work-life balances anyway. And this is real salaries. You can see how it was very much consistent between them, especially with the range of time they've been there. So we can definitely tell that a lot of them are telling the truth, and there's a lot of data to back up that this is the real salaries. Being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer is not the only way to make six figures. Being a UPS driver is another way. And the trades can also be very lucrative. The comment says, I don't want to work 55 hours to make 110K. Nope. But there are people working 40 hours and making minimum wage, which adds up to less than $50,000 a year. Working an additional 15 hours to make 110,000. I think it can be definitely worth it. I've worked 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours. There are times where we just work the hours we have to work just to get by and reach our goals. Another person says, what's up between the 50K and the 120 to 150? And I think it has to do with the starting salary because that person was very new. That guy who's like, he's been there for a couple of years. Another person said, I went to a retirement party for a UPS driver and he was 40. Well, if he saved his money, and I heard they have good benefits because one of them stated it, then yep, you can definitely retire if you're saving up well and you're good with money. Let's move on to another video.
I am a software engineer.
How much do you make?
Base salary got up to 85.5 and bonus was 8%. So let's just say somewhere in there.
I'm a software engineer for a healthcare staffing agency. I'm making right under $120,000.
I'm a software engineer. I do front-end development.
How much are you making in your role?
I'm making about 129-ish.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do y'all make in your roles?
I make $130 a year.
I am a front-end software engineer.
How much are you making?
I'm making $135,000 right now.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make in your role?
I make $145,000.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make now?
180 between salary and then stock compensation.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make?
Right now I make almost 160 base, plus bonuses puts it at about 185 for this year. Yeah.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make in your role?
My salary is like $165. So my compensation is split up between salaries, stocks, and bonus. My bonus this year came out to like 30, and stocks are around. It depends, obviously, on how the company does.
Yeah.
But it's about between 80, could be more.
Oh wow, good for them. They are making bank, and you can see a range. The range does depend on the company you work for and where you live. The cost of living. If you live in a high cost of living area, they pay you way more than somebody who's living in nowhere, Oklahoma. So that's to be taken into consideration, whether you think it's fair or not. Being a software engineer is one of the most lucrative roles, and it is considered a really good degree to invest in because just the rate of return is very high. One of the comment section says $85,000 for a software engineer is not good. He is getting played. Well, it depends. Does he have a degree? We didn't hear if they actually are just certified or if they have a degree. Sometimes there can be a premium on having a degree. Also, as I stated, the company you work for, the industry, the field. Is it a startup company? And I'm not a software engineer, I'm an electrical engineer. But when I was getting job offers, when I was coming out of college, there was a range. And let me tell you, that range was huge. 20K range between my lowest salary offer and my highest salary offer. That range can be large depending on where you're going, where you're living, the company you're working for, your role, your experience level. He looks like he's in his 30s, maybe early 40s, but you don't know. He could have just gotten into it like within a year or even a few months. Someone says STEM is the way to go. Yay! Someone says, but are these tech jobs like recession proof? Because I feel like as soon as layovers come around, they are the first to go, right or wrong. Well, you're gonna live in a world where you feel like that? Is that going to keep you from pursuing your dreams and potentially making an income? Like, they are making high incomes. All of them have the potential to save for a rainy day, to build fully funded emergency fund. And when the layoffs were happening a couple of years ago, mass tech layoffs, the average time for them to get reemployed was about 2 months. A lot of them are going to be well employed. Like, it's not going to be too hard for them to be employed and to go for these recession proof jobs. I feel like it's an anomaly. No job is inevitable. Your company can go bankrupt. I mean, look what happened with the government when they were cutting all these jobs. Typically, people thought the government was very stable. Looks like private industry this year has been more stable than the government. You never know. Let's move on to the next video. So this video is showing engineering salaries. It's showing for aerospace, biomedical, industrial, looking pretty good. Nuclear, chemical, civil, computer, electrical, mechanical, software. And as you can see, the software, $80,000 was a starting salary, the median starting salary. It depends on where you live, where you're going. This is a good way. And I think just given the starting salary versus the median salary is very important, because the starting salary, oftentimes you have zero experience, you're getting trained up, you're typically in the industry for less than 3 years. And so even though you're competitive, there are more experienced people than you. And it just makes it that much harder for you to demand high salary when you have zero full-time work experience. Other ways that you can leverage. But overall, I think this is a very fair assessment as to the salary to expect as an engineer. And engineering is a great field to be in. Let's look at some of the responses. I wish I lived in the United States. In the UK, it's $24,000 for engineers. I don't know what the cost of living is like, and if $24,000 is considered a decent salary. I do remember hearing that doctors made like $40,000, $50,000 in the UK. So there's that, just for comparison. Another person says, can you do systems engineering, please? And then the response goes, ooh, the wannabe engineers. Please, systems engineering is real engineering. I don't think it's a degree you can get from many universities, but I know that for my master's, it was an option. I chose to go with engineering management, but they're real engineers. Let's move on to the next video.
So I started off as a high school teacher, and my average salary is about $47,000 a year gross before any taxes were taken out.
Right, I started off as a respiratory therapist, and I can tell you that my hourly wage was $17.61 an hour, and my top out pay was $22 an hour.
After we became CAs and we were working W-2, my gross salary was about $130,000 a year gross before taxes.
I started off at $127.5 was my starting salary, which was, to me, was on the lower end. But where we started at, you were getting like 5% a year. Mm-hmm. So in a couple of years, I knew that I would have outpaced the market.
Yeah, but since we switched to locum work, when we first started out, I would say the gross was about $250 to $270 gross before any taxes.
So locum, and now that seems insane, but now we're seeing somewhere between the 400 and 450,000, including like gross, including stipends and mileage and everything. We're looking at around $400,000 to $450,000 a year
per individual.
Why didn't nobody tell me this existed? It demonstrates that it's not too late to pivot your career and to always discover new passions that you have. Somebody asked, are they married? And it says, yes, we are. So as a household, they are making $800,000 to $900,000 plus per year. And it's only going to go up from there. Another person says, what age did they start the program? One said, I started at 26, finished before my 29th birthday. Another person says, I'm 50 and I'm about to change my career plans after seeing this. But you have to make sure you like it, and that's not something you go in strictly for the money, because you have to enjoy it. And then a lot of these jobs are very demanding. So it's not something that you can just block off and be like, oh, I'm just do this from 9 to 5 and then come home and never think about it. It takes a lot to get into it and a lot to sustain once you get in. But it just shows you that there's so many career paths out there that a lot of us don't even know about. And when you don't know about it, you don't even have the opportunity to think about pursuing it. But do your research and figure out, is this something I'm interested in? And see all the different career paths that are so high paying beyond being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and, a scammer. That's not a real career. The ones that you keep hearing over and over again. A nurse, an astronaut. We push kids to these 10 careers, but there's so much more out there. And there are different types of being doctors, there are different types of engineers, there are different types of researchers out there. So there's something out there for everyone. Let's move on to this next video. It says my gross pay as an L&D nurse in 2024, $290,000. Whoa. Good for her. And I see her living it up. She says her gross pay was $290,010. And that's how I know she's telling the truth. Rather than having solid numbers, she said her net pay was $168,437. Of course, you have to pay $64,765 in taxes. And that should show you that people are not paying half their income in taxes. The government takes half and half. Almost no one pays half of their income in taxes in the United States of America. She invested $51,550. Her mortgage is $3,400 a month. Childcare $2,700 a month. 3 cars for $674 a month. I'm guessing for all 3 cars combined. And then groceries were $750 a month because Costco is the budget plan. So even somebody making all this money, she's budgeting. You can tell she's budgeting and she's financially conscious and she's tracking her expenses. And then the comments are just praising her, saying this is awesome. And someone is asking about getting a home for that mortgage in the area. Well, I think it depends on how much she put down. If this is her first home or if they rolled in equity into it, then it will determine the payment. This may not be her first home, or maybe it is, and she just put down a lot of money. She's making a ton of money in general, so you never know. But this is great. Good for her. Now let's move on to the next video.
I'm a law student.
What did you do before that?
I was a legislative director in the Texas House of Representatives.
How much did you make?
$50,000.
I'm a legal assistant. How long have you been doing it? About 2 years. And how much do you make? I make $55,000 a year.
I'm a legislative assistant for Congress.
Okay, how much do you make?
I make $82,000.
Worked at the DOJ. I was an assistant U.S. attorney for 2 years in D.C. and I made $73,000, and then you get locality pay, which was 20 something. It ended up being before taxes about $97,000 a year.
I am a self-employed attorney. I practice in the field of employment law. I mostly represent plaintiffs.
How much do you make?
Last year, I made about $100,000.
How long have you been doing it?
A few minutes. This is my 26th year as an attorney.
I actually work for the city of New York. I'm a legislative attorney, intergovernmental affairs.
How much do you make?
Oh my goodness, how much do I make right now? I just got a new job. So thank you, Pay Transparency. I think I'm making $115,000. Work for the city so you can see everyone's pay scale online.
I'm an attorney. And how much do you make?
134.
How many years of experience do you have?
8. I'm a lawyer.
How much do you make?
I make $215,000.
How long have you been doing it?
2 years.
I'm an attorney.
Attorney, and you're self-employed?
Yes, I am. I do criminal defense appointments in Kansas.
Wonderful. And how much do you make on average?
That makes $120 an hour in Kansas.
This is a good demonstration of the rates and the scale. Every lawyer is not making bank. Most are probably making the median. Depends on where you're working, who you're working for, the company, what type of law you're doing. And a lot of people who work in corporate law will over time make more money, but it requires so many more hours. Some people go into government law where they seem to have better hours. I remember this call from years ago on the Dave Ramsey show where this guy called and he was so tired. He was making base salary of $160,000 at a corporate law firm. And this was prior to the pandemic. So this was really a lot of money. And he was just tired. And he said, I just want to finish paying for my student loan so I can go work for the government for half that amount because he was so tired.
So I'm a lawyer, a couple years out of law school, and I just got a new job at a big law firm making about $200,000 a year.
Wonderful.
$88K in debt. I know this job isn't very sustainable. I work 80 plus hours a week, lots of stress, and I don't particularly enjoy the work, but I'm good at it. I want to eventually leave and become a government prosecutor, but that'll be a huge pay cut. I'd get huge raises every year, huge bonuses every year, so it seems like I'd be throwing money away to leave, without spending some time in this job, but kind of wondering how long that needs to be.
Prosecutor's office, you'd make what?
Probably 80K a year.
Okay,
so 80 to 100.
So more than cut in half.
Yeah, and it would probably max out at 120.
Yeah.
I'm in the kind of weird position of my income peaking early in my career rather than later.
It just depends on who you're working for. I also remember another lady who was making, I think, over 200,000, maybe 250 in corporate law, and she was working like 100 hours a week, and she was not able to see her grandparents in the hospital. And what do you think we pay you so much for? And she was tired of it. I think she ended up quitting. If I find that video, I'll insert it. But it was so heartbreaking.
Over $250,000 as a corporate lawyer, was one of the highest paid lawyers in the world for my age, had spent a decade working hard to get to where I was, and with one phone call and hearing those 10 words on the phone, I knew I was going to quit and walk away from it. I'm working in big law as a corporate lawyer in mergers and acquisitions, doing these billion-dollar deals. It is all about how hard you can work. Overworking is glamorized, and it's like this badge of honor when you say that you had to pull an all-nighter at work. We all had extra clothes in the office for those all-nighters, and if you don't bill enough hours, it's basically the unspoken rule that you'll get fired. I just accepted that 100-hour weeks were part of what I agreed to as a corporate lawyer. He calls me and he says, no, I can't give you an extension. And I kept trying to reason with him and tell him why I needed to go spend time with my grandpa. But he kept responding to my pleas with 10 words. What do you think we pay you so much for? My grandpa passed away shortly after, and I missed out on some of the last precious hours I could have spent with him.
Depending on who you're working for, how many hours you're working, and where you live, that salary can be vastly different. Let's move on to the next video.
So I'm a chemical engineering intern. Yeah. How much do you make? 32 an hour.
I am a IT engineer.
What? How much do you make?
I make $75,000.
I'm working as a power systems automations engineer, and I make about $75,000.
I'm a biomedical engineer. How much do you make? $78,000 a year.
I'm an electrical engineer.
How much do you make?
$80,000 a year.
I'm an environmental engineer. How much do you make? Make $80,000.
I'm a structural engineer in Florida.
How much do you make currently?
Between 80 and 85.
I'm a building engineer.
How much do you make?
Around 90,000.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make?
A little bit over 100,000, like 120 maybe.
I'm a data engineer. How much do you make? 115-ish.
I am a cloud engineer.
I'm a cloud engineer. Oh, a couple! How much do you make doing what you do?
120K.
120K a year. I'm an engineer. How much do you make? 130.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make?
About 130K.
I'm a hydraulic engineer.
And how much do you make?
About 130,000. I'm a chemical engineer.
How much do you make?
300,000. I have a graduate degree in chemical engineering. I have about 20 years of experience.
Just the range. And it shows you, again, depending on who you're working for, what type of education you have. They didn't ask if they had a degree or certifications. A lot of engineers will have degrees depending on what company you work for. If you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, that can make a huge difference in your compensation and your leverage, or even having an MBA. And most of all, where you live. But these are very realistic salaries for engineers. Even on the lower end, when I was going to start out as entry level, some of those salaries are very realistic as to what I was looking at. So don't think all engineers are making six figures. This is also very realistic. So let's look at what the comments are saying. Video must be from the early 2000s. Salaries are low, not even close to market. These are low salaries? Seriously? $32 an hour for an intern is even really good. I think when I was an intern, I made $26 an hour. And then when I did overtime, I got $39 an hour. That's when I was working crazy hours. Ooh, but the money was good. Someone responded, bro ignored all the iPhones in the video. Another person commented, what does the guy do to make $400K per year? My best prediction is that in chemical engineering, he probably does some sort of research, or he's in a managerial role or a directorial role. And that's why he's making that much money. Or he could even be a subject matter expert and an individual contributor. There's that role as well. But he definitely seemed to be well educated, and he had so much experience with 2 decades. That's worth a lot. Somebody says, it seems like engineering doesn't pay like it used to, or we thought it would. Like, what do you think was paying? Is $80,000 or $75,000 not considered a really good income for an individual? Most of these people are making well above the median household income. They're making more than households. I'm not understanding what this is. And some of the people who were on the lower end were newer engineers. A lot of those who were making below 6 figures were brand new engineers. So I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. Even with the intern, her salary adds up to about $66,000 per year. That is more than the median individual income in the United States, and she's an intern. Somebody also says that all these engineers and can't even break 100K. We got plumbers, HVAC techs, electricians bringing twice that. These people went to college, probably went into debt debt for education and it simply isn't paid off. I think they all deserve more. Well, they do deserve more. I'm not going to argue with that. But to say that plumbers, electricians, a lot of them making a ton of money, but to say they're bringing in double that, are you serious? Like, where is this? This is not utopia. Some of them are probably making just as much, some making more, but we're talking about the average or the median. This is not representative for each engineering group, and they are not representative for their trade group. You're not going to tell me the average plumber is making $200,000. That's just not realistic. And when it comes to the debt, not everybody's going to debt. I went to college debt free. I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering debt free. I'm currently getting my master's degree debt free. I went on merit-based scholarship. I was a really good student and applied for over 200 scholarships. With my current master's, my job is paying and I have a scholarship to pay for it. So don't assume everybody's going to debt to get their education. And even for those who do, the median student loan debt is still under $40,000 to make over $40,000 more per year than they otherwise would have with a high school diploma. So I say here in Chicago, every girl thinks all of the guys are making over $500K minimum per year. I hope nobody's that delusional. The number of individuals making over $500,000 per year is not even 3% of the country. So that's a very small percentage of people. Let's watch one last video.
The salary that you need to make today in order to live like your parents did in 1983 on $30K is insane. Money is one of the big concerns on everyone's mind these days, and people are struggling to make ends meet as prices increase, but wages do not. And the current economic climate leaves many wondering how past generations even got by. So a financial expert shared the salary that you need to make in order to live like your parents did 40 years ago. Robert Gill, who is the founder of Epic Financial Strategies, said that if your parents made $30,000 a year 40 years ago, you would have to make $162,342 a year just to have the same purchasing power adjusted for inflation. Because inflation erodes the buying power of each and every dollar. So as wages have only marginally increased since the 80s compared to inflation, every dollar is worth less and does not buy as much. Forbes says that inflation refers to a broad increase in prices across an entire sector or a country's entire economy. And this is because large corporations have the singular authority to raise their prices, often take advantage of certain situations in order to raise prices unnecessarily, leaving inflation to unnecessarily spiral out of control while corporations boast record profits. And Forbes also shows how this works with their graph of wealth inequality. Inflation really means one thing: money leaving the working class and going up to the 1%. And people are feeling the pain of inflation. As the value of money decreases, the income needed to live a comfortable life like your parents did will continue to be more and more unattainable.
I like this, but first we have to do a little bit of research to really contextualize this. So what was the median income in 1983? So the median income in 1983 for a family, the median household income was $24,580. So $30,000 was well above the median household income in the United States. Interestingly, in today's money, that is $76,750, slightly below the median individual income in the United States of about $80,000. And $30,000 is equivalent to $94,000 in the United States. Now, the main conversation is not just the amount that has changed, because that's true, but it's about the purchasing power. And we can all admit that is very different. $30,000 was so much more back then than it is now, even adjusted to be $94,000. But it just shows how much people are actually making, and that not everybody is making six figures. But we don't have to skew it just to make it feel better. I think it would be better if you use the median household income rather than using $30,000, because a lot of people don't have the perspective of what $30,000 was back then. Not everybody was making that. Back then, the minimum wage was also very, very low. People complain about the cost of living. People complain about the wages. People complain about the price of milk being like 50 cents. It's just so much that have also changed. As I said about us as a society, well, we have to be realistic with how much people are making. Don't compare yourself to people who are making way more or way less, or say they are. Go look at the numbers, look at your field, and are you being well compensated? It doesn't mean you should switch to a certain field just because it makes more. If that's what you want to do, fine, pivot. You have that option. If you want to make a ton more money, just like the anesthesiologists were making, you can go to the field of anesthesiology. It's accessible to many of us if you can make the scores to pass it. it. But sometimes you just like the field that you're in. So it's about finding ways to create more income, leveraging your experience to make more, bettering yourself, being more educated to keep yourself in demand, and learning to live below your income. Not living in lifestyle inflation mode just because you make more, and understanding the importance of budgeting, tracking your expenses, saving for the future, and always doing your best not to compare, but seeking what is right for you. I really want to talk about this because it seems like everybody on the internet is making six figures, but that's not true. It's an echo chamber of people just spewing anything, and a platform where people can lie with no consequences. So don't fall for the baloney, and instead do your own research and know that if you are sincerely working hard, if you're sincerely doing your best, that's great. So with that, I'm bringing this video to an end. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And as we discuss how to live below our means, one of the biggest ways is to eat at home. So come back to my YouTube channel on Wednesday where I have a new recipe, delicious and affordable, for us to try. And if my channel is adding value to your life, be sure to hit the subscribe button, share with somebody who you think could be helpful towards, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you all again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.